Thank you, Professor Leon. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very proud of being invited in such an important university. As Professor Zhang was saying before, we are here in Beijing to celebrate the 30th anniversary of our presence in China. We believe very much in this country, and we are very grateful to the Chinese people, to the Chinese companies, to the Chinese authorities for the way they accepted us, for the way they welcomed us, and for the way they helped us and support us in developing our activities in your magnificent country. Intesa Sanpaolo is a leading bank in Italy, one of the leading banks in Europe, and I hope not only in terms of size. We believe very much in the relationship with our 20 million clients. Long-term relationships with customers is our key factor for success, let me use this word. And we are mainly concentrated in Italy. 11 millions are in Italy, 8 millions are in other countries in Central Eastern Europe, where we have 30,000 people of ours to service them. Some experiences of ours might be useful also in the Chinese environment, and that's the reason why I accepted your very kind invitation. We are a real economy bank. That's a concept I want to stress because from this concept a number of other things will derive. We believe in, as I was saying, in the commercial activities, long-term relationship with our customers, loans on one side, deposit on the other side. We mainly work with companies of any size, but the bulk of our customer base is made of small and medium-sized companies. More than 1 million are customers of ours. They are the bulk of the basic structure of our economy. I know that this segment of the economy is also very important for China, and in that respect, the kind of experiences we have developed in supporting these companies, making them stronger, helping them in internationalization and innovation projects might be of relevance also for the China economy and the China market. I was mentioning before the importance of long-term relationship. That's also one of the main reasons why the Italian banking system and our bank has gone through the crisis better than many other banks and many other countries in the world. Good rules, good control systems, general wisdom by the Italian people that are good savers and do not like that much to be too much indebted, together with the long-term perspective of our banks, have enabled us to go through the crisis without creating any trouble, without any need for public money, without creating any credit crunch, even during the peak of the crisis. Very few countries can say the same. China is certainly amongst those very few countries that have been able to manage the crisis in a very wise and effective way. If we look at the main examples of those countries and of those banks that have proved to be more fragile, more unable to cope with the problems of the crisis, we find in a number of cases exactly those banks that do not consider customers as partners, but customers as counterparts, as a sort of commodity. They can package, they can sell, they can buy, they can securitize, while the long-term common life together, if I can use this word, together with your customers, is exactly the way you can cope with problems, you can cope and you can take advantage of the development stages in the economy, but that's what makes a bank a real economy bank, as we are proud of considering ourselves. Our commitment in China, and then I will move to the topic I was given. Our commitment in China started 30 years ago. We started with a small representative office, then we opened 2 branches, then we started investing according to Chinese rules in a number of activities that today are very interesting for us. We are happy shareholders of the Bank of Qingdao, a nice bank that is growing fastly in the Qingdao area. We are shareholders in an asset management company, Penghua, that is also growing very interesting. We are shareholders of an insurance company, Life. We are part of an investment fund, the Mandarin Fund, that has the mission to provide equity to Chinese, Italian ventures. So, you see, even if the internal market is reserved, according to your rules, to domestic banks, we try to be a bridge between the China, and the Chinese entities, Chinese market and the Italian market, and at the same time, we try to become Chinese in China, let me use this word. We try to learn how to be banks in China, and the 4 shareholdings I mentioned before are part of this long-term strategy. The European Union is the main partner of China from an international trade point of view. More than 12% of Chinese imports come from Europe. More than 20% of Chinese exports are to Europe. And that makes the European Union the first, the strongest partner of China. Within Europe, there is Germany that is particularly strong, and there are a number of countries like Italy that are growing very rapidly. Italy is probably the one that is enjoying the fastest growing phase in the last few years. Both exports and imports with Italy have grown more than 30% for the 2nd year in a row, and we consider future perspective very favorable for the development of relationship between our 2 countries. Today, we are mainly concentrated in China in industrial automation, in fashion, but we see a number of other industries growing very rapidly, pharmaceutical, plastics, and 2 areas in particular that are becoming more and more interesting and crucial for the future of the planet, that are new energy and environmental friendly techniques on the one side, and healthcare goods and services on the other side from the crisis. And we certainly can learn a number of things from what happened in the world in the last few years. But learning for what? Learning to build the foundations of a new phase of sustained growth at the world level. I know you're already growing a lot, sufficient to create jobs that at the end are the most important result, the most important objective of growth. So we do not have a growth problem at the global level. The different regions of the world, there we have a problem. We have a number of very strong countries like yours that are growing, real poor countries, the last billion people countries, where growth is absolutely insufficient to cope with poverty. Also because of poverty, of lack of growth. The financial world, from the last 3 years crisis, there are many lessons. Because the main reason why are some good rules, but certainly rules have played an important role. The first one, has to do with economic beliefs, and rules are based on economic beliefs.
some of the bad heroes behave. And that's the second lesson on which I will elaborate a little bit. And the third lesson, that is a very positive lesson, is the importance of international cooperation. Cooperation and the capability of the top people of the West to do with these three main lessons. For example, as Professor Young was saying before, law is very important in the economic world and not only in the civil society. Rules do matter and make the difference. And without rules that are, and if we try to identify some of the main with the lack of good rules, at the end, excessive mismatching of assets and liabilities in the way banks are managed. What I mean by mismatching, the first bank that blew up in UK was a bank, Northern Rock, who used to finance, used to fund its own activities with very short-term funds, but on the other side, on the asset side, was engaged in very long-term loans. So this mismatching that was considered a sort of innovative business system was at the very root of the weakness of that bank, because prudence and balance between assets and liabilities are basic good rules, but laws and regulations did not provide for that kind of balance. And without those kind of rules, you build day after day good reasons for crisis. So very simple rules could have avoided the blow-up of the crisis. Take, for example, another basic reason, basic cause of the crisis, the mortgage business in the United States. There is a simple, common sense rule that says that the value to loan, so the value of the real estate in finance, has to be only a proportion, a part of has to be much bigger than the loan you provide to your customer. No limit to this loan to value was another good reason for the crisis. So we're not talking about very difficult, very complex kind of rules. We're really talking about very basic and simple rules that, should they have been enforced, would have avoided, really prevented the world from falling into the crisis we are now suffering from. And countries with this kind of rules have gone through the crisis much better. Countries with good rules in terms of indebtedness, leverage, mismatching of duration, derivatives, like Canada, like Australia, like Italy, certainly like China, have proved that this kind of very simple good rules are sufficient to avoid bad problems.